Alrighty. Well, it's been an interesting week thus far. It got more interesting both last night and early this morning when members of the state legislature to the south in Springfield, Illinois, passed a massive tax increase. The final passage, I believe being about 1:30 this morning. And I've spent a good chunk of the day in and out of meetings here on the phone, and we'll be going off to do a TV interview with media in Illinois. We've had a little bit of fun. We dug up a slogan from the past, Escape to Wisconsin, which was the tourist slogan back in the 80s, and we've adapted it as the message we're very clearly sending to employers in the state of Illinois. Your governor, your legislature in Illinois sent a very clear message what they think about employers in that state. The Chicago Tribune wrote, I think, an editorial today that hit the nail on the head. Talking about this being a job killer. That's exactly where they're taking it in that direction right now in the land of Lincoln. We want to send a sharp contrast, and we already have for the past week here in the Badger State, that Wisconsin is open for business and that we take the contrast seriously. And to that extent, it's my hope that this is one more incentive for the members of the State Assembly and the State Senate, Republican and Democrat alike, to move forward on aggressively passing parts of our jobs agenda during the special session. The contrast I've given all day is that while Springfield is looking to balance their budget by excessive increases in taxes on both employers and individuals, we're sending a message early in the days in office that we're looking to cut taxes and reduce the overall tax burden on individuals and employers long term as part of our budget and subsequent actions, as well as in this special session doing more to lower the cost of doing business, not only when it comes to taxes, but specifically when it comes to regulation, litigation, and health care costs. And we think this is a tremendous, tremendous example for us to make to businesses south of the border. Now, I have talked even before taking office about the idea of going to places like Chicago and Rockford and St. Paul to make the case about how things have changed here in the state of Wisconsin and will be changing in the future. Clearly, the actions in Springfield last night and this morning give us pause to be more aggressive in that regard, and it's something that we've had a little bit of fun with. On a lighter side, I should say, when I was on one of the Chicago TV stations today, they said, well, isn't this part of a natural tension between Illinois and Wisconsin? I said, well, this is very serious when it comes to jobs. On the lighter side, I offered in 2 weeks to come down and talk a little smack about the Packers and the Chicago Bears at that point as well. But from this standpoint, we're serious about the difference when it comes to jobs and the economy, and we wanted to highlight that today because we think this really, not only is it a great contrast with Illinois as a message to employers, it's one more reason why it reinforces the importance of us acting quickly. If we can show in the not-too-distant future, ideally even by this month, that we're headed in one direction, which is positive, versus the negative direction that lawmakers and the governor have chosen to take in Springfield, I think that's a great way for us to go out and generate more interest in coming to Wisconsin. Yesterday, we already had some businesses contacting us in the Department of Commerce. I assume the more we get this message out, the better off it's going to be in our efforts to try and attract more jobs up from the state of Illinois. With that, I'll take any questions.
Governor, you mentioned this is a massive tax increase, but even with the massive tax increase, Wisconsin's income tax is still higher than theirs.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, they asked me about that on a number of the shows today, and I point out if you're a company, you make an assessment not just on where things are today, but where they're headed. The Illinois politicians have made a clear indication that they're looking to not solve their budget crisis by getting spending under control, but by taxing. And I think evidence has shown us in Illinois and other parts of the country that without making tough decisions, in a year or 2 years, they're going to come back and have to raise taxes again. In contrast, we're sending a very clear message, as I did on the day of the inauguration, that we will not balance our budget with a tax increase. Instead, we'll make the tough but compassionate decisions to get our budget under control. And I think if you're in a business looking to make a long-term investment, that's really the difference here. They've sent a message as to which way they're headed. We're sending a message that not only now in the special session, but in the budget when we start to hone in on property taxes and in subsequent actions we take when we start lowering the income and corporate tax over the next couple of years, that we're headed in a positive direction for employers. Illinois is headed in the negative direction.
So what will you propose lowering the corporate or personal income tax in your first budget?
Those areas, we're really going to hone in on this next level on maintaining what we passed in the special session and then honing in on property tax relief, which is particularly important to small businesses, startup businesses, and certainly to corporations as well. Property tax relief will be a hallmark of this upcoming state budget, and in subsequent budgets we'll do more to tackle, and not even just budgets, subsequent sessions. After this budget's passed, we'll do more to tackle income and corporate taxes.
Governor, do you support the voter ID bill?
Yes, I do. I was the author of it a decade ago. To me, it makes sense, and we should be a state that has fair and open elections, and this would be one more tool in doing that.
Can you say how many or what businesses might have contacted you in the last couple of days?
Yesterday, handful. We've had some others that have contacted the Department of Commerce through the state. My guess is, this is something that a lot of businesses are just soaking in, but my hope would be, again, we had looked at probably sometime after the budget was coming out to make a trip down into Chicago and probably one to St. Paul to talk about how things have changed and they're heading in the right direction in Wisconsin. We may accelerate that trip, and we're going to be looking even in the next week. We're going to be making some other announcements that I think will draw attention to the contrast between Wisconsin and Illinois as well.
Were the businesses that contacted you from Illinois specifically?
What's that?
Were the businesses that
Yes.
contacted you from Illinois?
Yes.
Governor, Representative Voss has talked about wanting to see a change in the small business tax credit, oriented more towards a tax credit for jobs created. Both the majority leader and the speaker have also talked about that. Do you support going in that direction?
Sure. I mean, the bottom line for us is we want tax relief, and we want it done in the special session for two reasons. One substantive, one symbolic. From the symbolic standpoint, we want to send a clear message that we've heard the voters, we've reacted, we're sending a strong and powerful message, and in light of what they've done in Illinois, even more important to send a message as to two different paths, two different directions. On the substantive side, as long as we've got a package that provides substantial tax relief to small businesses, how we get there, we're willing to talk about. I met with the Speaker, Majority Leader earlier today. I met in the past week or so with the minority leaders in both the Assembly and the Senate, talked to other lawmakers. Again, from our standpoint, we're not wed to a specific pattern. In fact, we've even adjusted from what we originally put out and what we introduced. As long as it provides tax relief targeted towards small businesses, we're more than willing to act on it.
Will Wisconsin's personal and corporate taxes be lower than Illinois by the end of your first term?
We haven't set a specific target, but I certainly want them lower than they are now. How we get there obviously will depend on how far we can move with this budget and with the legislative process.
But you will lower Wisconsin's by the end of your first term?
Yes.
And that's a commitment you make to these Illinois businesses?
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing is, remember in this package, we also have, if there's a company in Illinois that hasn't been in Wisconsin, we also have included in our special session package a relocation tax credit that would give 2 years free in corporate income taxes for a company that has not done in the past decade business in Wisconsin. It's an awfully big incentive, and per the question Jason had asked about adjustments, we also mentioned some lawmakers would like to lower that time frame from 10 to a different year. Again, we're willing to work on that, even more so now in light of the fact that there's interest south of the border.
Governor, what tools will you use in this marketing campaign to attract Illinois businesses, and how much do you figure it'll cost?
Cost-wise, I think you're actually going to see the things we're going to announce next week are things that are part of normal operation costs. We're just doing them very differently than they've been done before, but I think they'll get a significant amount of attention. The other part, part of it's just me personally going there, making the case. I was pleasantly surprised, I think, in light of the contrast, how many of the Chicago TV and radio stations picked up on our statement. It was kind of fun to, again, bring this out again. But a number of them are having us back on. I was on one of the stations early this morning, again at noon. But for a lot of businesses who are, like the editorial in the Chicago Tribune, kind of shaking their head, wondering what's going on in Springfield today, for us, just continuing to hammer down the difference between Illinois and Wisconsin, I think is going to be very powerful, and there's not a cost to that.
The border area, you guys
Huh?
will be putting stuff up down there.
Yeah, we've got stuff up there, but again, without giving it away, you'll find something that's doesn't add any additional cost to the taxpayers from what's normally done, but I think it'll be fairly unique.
Billboards of some sort?
Well, you'll have to see what next week. I wouldn't be a good tease if I told you what it was. Would it, Jesse?
Got time for one more question? Do you feel the need to accelerate this special session legislation now that Illinois is able to move the tax increase?
I mean, obviously, we want to give full deference to having good public hearings and to have the full legislative process engaged. But I think for any lawmaker who's wondering whether you do it today, tomorrow, or a couple weeks from now, I think the sooner we can act on this within a legitimate time frame, the better, because it's a great contrast.
Does it mean end of the month?
I haven't set an arbitrary timeline. I'd certainly love it by this time, if most, if not all of it, was done by the time we had the State of the State address. But again, we'll want to work with the lawmakers to make sure we're doing it on a time frame that fits their needs as well.
Thanks, Dad.
Great, thanks.